Guys, all right, let's find out what happens in Act 5. We're starting Act 5. You should have read pages 504 to 510 for today. So, as I mentioned yesterday, in Act 5, when that opens up, 15 years have gone by. Okay, so 15 years later, and we are at a convent because what happened is Roxanne, after the death of Christian, and she went into mourning and she joined a convent, mourning the death of her husband for all these years. So she joined a convent, and we find out that Cyrano has been coming to visit her, and he visits her every week on the same day at the same time. He comes to visit her. He's remained a friend to her, brings her all the news from the outside world. And he would come every Saturday, and he's been regularly coming every Saturday for 15 years. Well, we find that De Guiche has always also visited Roxanne, not as often as Cyrano at all, but he does occasionally visit her. So when this scene opens, if we were watching the play and the curtain would rise, we would be at the convent, and we would notice the time of year. The leaves are falling, and so we notice the time of year that it is fall, it's autumn. And this fact alone is a little bit foreshadowing to us that something sad might happen because it's fall, which is a symbol of age. And so we're here, and when it opens up, we have the mother, Mother Marguerite, and then some of the sisters, the other nuns, all around, and they're just having this little conversation. And then they bring up Cyrano, and they talk about, yeah, how he's getting, pretty poor. And so then we have De Guiche enters in, and we see Roxanne and De Guiche. They enter walking together. And De Guiche will find after these 15 years has kind of mellowed. He's not quite as much of a jerk anymore. Right. So they're walking along together. And as they're walking, De Guiche says to her, you're still staying here at this convent and wasting all that gold that you could have had, and you're just going to stay here forever in mourning. And she's like, yeah, forever. And he's like, and you're still faithful to Christian? And she said, yes. And then he looks at her and he says, but have you forgiven me? Because he knows, that it's basically his fault, right? That Christian is dead, because remember, he signaled to the spy to come and attack them. And so he knows it's his fault. And so he's like, have you forgiven me? And she's like, well, I'm here. I'm standing here talking with you. And so De Guiche was like, was Christian really, was he really all that? Was he that special, and that important to you? And she says, oh, yes, if you only knew him. And he's like, that you're carrying that letter that's close to your heart. And she said, yes, she carries it always close to her heart. The letter from Christian, right? The farewell letter that was really from Cyrano. But Roxanne doesn't know that. So she carries that letter always hanging like around her neck. She carries that always with her. And so then De Guiche asks her, he says, do you see Cyrano very often? And she says, yep, every week he comes, and he's like my gazette or my newspaper. He comes and he tells me all the news of the week. And then they see Lebret coming, like, oh, there's Lebret. How is Cyrano doing? And he's like, not too well. And De Guiche is like, really? And Roxanne's like, oh, you're just exaggerating. He's like, no, he's not doing well. He's lonely, miserable. He continues to write like his poetry and stuff like that. And but he is very offensive. Like he is attacking like the nobility and the lords, and he attacks everybody. Lebret says he's just in his writings, right? So he's making all these enemies, and Roxanne's like, yeah, but nobody would dare to fight with him. And De Guiche is like, well, that might be so. And Lebret's like, well, but I'm worried about him because he's in poverty. He is in solitude. He's by himself all the time, and he's losing weight, and he's just not doing well. And De Guiche is like, well, I wouldn't feel too sorry for him because all that may be true, but he lives his life his own way. the way he wants to do things in thought and word and deed, he's free, right? Because remember, he doesn't want to work for anybody, and just wants to be his own boss, which he is. And so he said, so he's free. And so don't pity him too much. And so De Guiche says, I do envy him now and then because, he's always lived his life the way he wanted to, and he's free, and he's always been noble and had, good character and he's done the right thing. And so he's like, I kind of envy him a little bit. And Roxanne is like, wow, that's kind of fun. It's weird for her to hear praise for Cyrano coming from De Guiche. And she's like, that's kind of weird. Okay. And so then De Guiche goes to Lebret and he's like, excuse me a moment, Roxanne. He goes over to Lebret and he's like, look, I know that, we think that nobody dares to attack Cyrano and like nobody's brave enough to get into a sword fight with him. He said, but I've overheard some people talking at court the other day because there are a lot of people that don't like him. Like he's making a lot of people angry with the stuff that he's writing. And so it's like, there's a lot of people that don't like him. And I heard them at court. Somebody said to me, this man Cyrano may die accidentally. So De Guiche is telling the brat, look, you need to warn Cyrano. There are people who are talking about his death, an accidental death for him. So you need to warn him, make him stay at home and not go out anywhere and just to stay home and stay where he is so that they can't attack him. And Lebret's like, okay, I'll warn him, but like I'm not gonna be able to make him do anything. And so then Ragueneau comes in. Okay, and he's like, I want to see Roxanne. And she's like, okay. So Ragueneau comes running in and she's like, Madame, and then he sees Lebret and says, Monsieur. And Roxanne's like, oh, first talk to Lebret for a minute first. Just go talk to him. And then she goes out. And so then Ragueneau is left to tell Lebret some awful, terrible news of something that just happened. And that's where we left off. So for tomorrow, you will read, or for Monday, you will read pages 510 to 515 and see what Ragueneau's news is that he brings to them. And we will talk about that on Monday.